Hey, welcome to Street Fight, the third show. I haven't done one of these since February, so I forgot how to bring in the show. But my recollection of how this show happens is that I introduce the show every time and then say that I forgot how to do it. So this this week I have somebody that's very cool that I met last year that also gonna be a lot more of him around here. So say hi to Tom Sexton from the Trillbillies. What's up, Tom?
What's up, Street Fighters?
It's so cool to. I love talking to you. I had fun talking to you and Terrence, but I always find that shows with two people, it's harder to kind of do something a little more in depth. You know, like it's harder to have like that's a harder conversation. It's like I guess it's like more like promoting in a weird way, you know?
Yeah, totally,
Because
totally.
you want to have the other. If you have somebody on by themselves, then you can really just talk about who they are as a person and stuff, and that's the kind of shit that these shows usually are. So I'm glad you came on to do this with me.
Oh man, I'm happy to be with y'all. I'm a proud member of the Street Fight community, and it's an honor.
Yeah, you're the best, dude. We came down last year to Kentucky, to Whitesburg, to check out a show that you guys put on that was really well done. And it was a concert that had a bunch of different types of music acts on it, and like something that I've been wanting to ask you
Uh,
since then is like, have you been promoting for like, have you been a promoter before?
yeah, so this is not like the most proud admission, but I used to manage that bar we did that at back in the day. so I've got a cop past I'm not proud of, but so yeah, I just Summit, the place we were at, is like sort of an institution in Kentucky, and like we've had like Sturgill Simpson's played there, Jason Isbell's played there, like a lot of acts have played there, and it kind of punches above its weight, in terms of like the kind of shit it brings in for whatever reason. But yeah, so I was there for like 2 years, and met a bunch of people in touring bands that I still have pretty good relationships with, and so that's kind of sort of the what we were trying to do with that show a little bit, is bring some of those folks in and kind of mix it up a little bit, so.
It was like a wild. It was crazy to me, but like there has to be a so there like Kentucky to me. I've only been to Louisville and Whitesburg and then Buckhorn Lake, right?
The three metropolitan areas.
Well, I spent one night in the suburbs of Lexington one
Okay.
time.
Okay.
Me and Brett did on the way down to Atlanta for a live show, and it it does there. The Whitesburg thing was like super shocking to both of us because it feels like there's a scene there, and not only does it feel like there's a scene, but there was like people in Carhartts there. It was like real ass people at these shows. Me and Brett live in the city. We live in Columbus. I know people think it's a small city, but it's actually like the 15th largest city in the country. So it's not
Right.
that fucking small. And our scene, even for country music, we'll just say, is basically hipsters. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Totally.
if Sturgill Simpson played here, everybody that's there would be like a guy in $200 jeans with a handlebar mustache.
Oh, totally. But hey, Columbus and Eastern Kentucky, we have Dwight Yoakam in common.
That's true. Dwight Yoakam kicks ass too, but he's down
Yeah.
in Texas now, isn't he?
What's that? Is he? What's that? I didn't catch that.
Is he down in Texas now?
I don't know. I don't
He
know. I
keeps
know
getting
he.
busted drunk driving down there, doesn't he?
I thought that was Randy Travis. Have you ever seen that video?
Oh yeah, I thought yeah, it is Randy Travis. Dwight Yoakam's actually He's actually like a kind of, he looks like a dork. Yeah, it's Randy Travis because he's handsome. Randy Travis is a handsome man.
Dude, that video is so fucking good.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter how hard I've tried to cop a buzz in my life, I've never been Randy Travis telling a cop that God's going to smite him and I got a huge dick drunk.
You know what though? Like, we're so afraid of cops in the city, and that is something that's different where you guys are, right? Like in places that are more rural, people seem a lot less afraid of the police to me, even though they can look at the goddamn jail. It's sitting right there in the city, you know?
Right. Yeah. Like 2 doors down from the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably a little bit true. I think, I think like, and I'm not saying this is like a pro cop thing, obviously, because, no matter, if you're some small town deputy or, out there murdering people or whatever, I mean, you're still serving the interests of the affluent, right? If you're police. So, I mean, it's still problematic, but it does look different, I think, in small communities a little bit. But at the same time, man, it's like, I mean, it's the same shit. Like, all of them have bought into this, like, thin blue line, be your brother's keeper bullshit, and all that stuff. So,
Right. Yeah. I think that there is like a thing, and it very well could be because it's like a lot of white people. Or I've actually thought this a lot is that down there, the dipshits that are the cops are the same dipshits you like went to high school with. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
Like you're like, fuck you. Because if I see a cop I haven't seen one because the police department here is so big.
Mm-hmm.
But if you see a cop that you're gonna have like just a touch less not respect. You're gonna be less afraid of them, I guess, than you would be to some guy,
Right. Yeah, totally. Because all their shit. You know that they like shit themselves at a party when you were like 18, and you can only respect that guy so much.
Yeah. Actually, the weirdest thing about me, I don't think anybody that I was friends with turned into a cop.
Man, you're lucky.
Really?
Well, I was telling we were talking about this on the show not too long ago. I used to go in the mornings and swim laps at this like little like I don't know what you would call it. We call it the pavilion. It's got like basketball courts and like a gym and all that shit in it. And I was going in one morning, and I'm signing in, and the guy says, "Are you here to take the POPs test?" And so, like, the POPs test is like the physical fitness test that all like aspiring cops have to take, and it's like you got to run a mile in a certain amount of time and be able to like, I don't know, whatever the fuck cops do, like 20 sit-ups or whatever it is. And I said, "No, I'm just here to swim laps." And he says, "Oh, okay." He says, "I didn't know." He said, "We've had about 40 something sign up today," and like that's an astonishing amount of people for like that are trying to be cops in Hazard, Kentucky, population like 2,100 or something.
That is a lot. That is wild. That like 40 and how many cops do you think are there, like working for the force?
I mean, probably at least. Well, it's crazy too, dude, because it's like, all these towns are small, and I get like the opioid crisis probably makes these agencies think they've got to like hire a bunch of people or whatever, but like. You have the city agencies, the county agencies, the state police everywhere, and all in these towns of like just a couple of thousand people. So, I mean, like, you're talking about Whitesburg probably has, 7 or 8 city, 4 or 5 county, and like at least 2 state troopers around all the time for a town of fucking 1,600 people.
Right. And there's nothing they can do about the opioid crisis.
No.
I always say that like, the thing about cops is like they're not the ones that are going to solve this thing.
No, totally, totally. And you know, I don't know how it is in Columbus. I think for like small towns like where I'm from, I think if you're a guy and you know you want some standing in the community and you want a job that's like revered and also has a low barrier to entry, it's like it makes sense why you might do that shit or be tempted to do that shit.
Yeah, and also it is one of the main jobs you can do if you're a veteran and you come back, which, you know,
Exactly.
that's a big deal. These veterans leave and then they come back and they don't have shit to do. Why not? You know, I knew a guy that only joined the Marines. He joined the Marines. He said, "I'm going to do it for 4 years, and then I'm going to become a state highway patrolman." And his plan was that he was going to be a state highway patrolman. It's a good job because all you have to do is sit in your car and you know, clock people. That was his whole plan. He was just looking for a job that like didn't require too much of you.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the other part. It's also very easy.
Yeah. Well, here it feels like it is veterans, but it also just kind of, and you're right about standing in the community too. It is like a respectful thing. But I can tell you, and I'm sure you probably didn't do this, but when I was, you know, from about the age of 19 to about the age of 26, before I kind of paid attention to politics and shit like that,
Yeah.
I was just like a young white guy that was kind of conservative, that was like, well, you know, I could go in the military or I could become a cop and they make enough money that won't have to worry about money anymore. You know, and
Right.
the only reason I didn't do it is because I'm astoundingly lazy.
No, I understand. I understand that. I'll say this too, dude. I'll say this. And again, I'm not trying to come off pro cop here, but you know, when we're on, you know, when we all punch the clock at Twitter every day, and you're seeing like, you know, all of our friends on the left Twitter community, you know, saying like, you know, fuck the police and all cops are bastards and all this stuff. Like, I'm totally with you on that. Totally with you on that. But one thing I would add too is that if you have never had somebody that you like at least went to school with or that you liked or that maybe is even in your family that wasn't either police or military, chances are that you didn't grow up working class. And that's not a knock. That's just like something I think on the left need to engage a little bit more, is that is like, you know, these are like,
Oh yeah.
I'm not saying cops deserve a union or any of this kind of stuff, or they should be looked at as workers in the same light. I'm just saying that, like, if we're talking about the working class, there's we got to engage that a little bit.
I mean, dude, they make $90,000 a year or whatever. You know, when you start looking into cop salaries and you see what they make, if you're broke, man, me and Brett talk about this a lot, but like, if you're a young working class dude, then like you're looking for like one of three jobs basically, and that is like a trade. Like an electrician or plumber or something like that is a good job, or a welder is like one that every like redneck dude is like, because I was like, oh man, I'll be a welder. They make $70 an hour.
That's so, dude. That is so fucking spot on. That's why I fuck with you. Like, if you didn't go to school with at least 7 aspiring welders, that's another thing.
Yeah, it is like, and then the next one is utility company, which is where I ended up, in the cable company. You're just looking for a job of a thing that you know isn't going to go away.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
And then the last one is like manager at the warehouse, you know, and those are the 3 jobs. If you can't, I mean, truck driver is another one, but like, if you can't get one of those jobs, the cop pays a lot of money. My uncle was a cop. Okay. he went beat cop detective, and then he also worked for the policing unit of the Department of Agriculture in Columbus, in Ohio.
Ah.
And he collected Corvettes.
Oh my God, dude.
So it's like one of those things where it's like you see a guy like that, man, he's got land, he has a huge house, he has a pool table, and he collects Corvettes. Him and his wife are both cops. You're like, I could have been seduced into that life, you know?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I'm glad you brought that up because it's like, okay, so here after the 2016 election, like basically the impetus for our whole fucking show was, all these like fake pieces that popped up about like the poor beleaguered coal miner and all this kind of stuff. So when I grew up, like the coal miners' kids were the rich kids because coal miners sometimes make like 150 grand a year.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's not like when my granddad was doing it way back when they were getting paid company money and working 9 days a week and shit like that. It's like it's just like you say with your aunt and uncle there. It's like you know sometimes these like really like, I don't know if you would call them working class, not necessarily blue collar, but that type of work is not necessarily as like, I guess blue collar is a good word, as you would think it would be.
With the police job also, man, you get a gun and everybody has to follow your directions.
Exactly.
It's like so much. I mean, yes, people think it's dangerous. And yes, cops get shot sometimes. That's going to happen when you're pointing guns at people and running into people's houses and shit. And it's not as dangerous of a job as they make it out to be. And I think a lot of dudes like a lot of us know that they're not in any more danger than like a bartender, like a bartender's a dangerous fucking job.
Oh God, dude. Yeah. 100%.
Roofer is a dangerous, like that's one blue collar job right there. Roofer or general laborer that pays $9.50 an hour. And it's the most, like when you think about that, you're like, they're doing the most work of anybody else in the world, and they're making nothing.
And I've done those jobs, man. I've done those jobs, and the characters you meet on those jobs are like you find are just like you, like either like kind of fuck up guys, that trying to get back on their feet, and their uncle got them a job, and whatever it is. But yeah, you're right about that. It's like you make next to nothing, and you're on top of a friggin' roof, like 100 degrees out and shit. Yeah,
I was a roofer from November to January or February in like 2000, and probably in like 2000 or 19. Yeah, it was the year 2000.
Yeah,
and I was an industrial roofer in the dead of fucking winter, and I was making $9.50 an hour. And the day they called me and said, "Would you like to be laid off?" I was just like, "Yes, please."
Please, God, anything. Yeah.
I would do anything to not have to do this anymore.
Dude, roofing. Yeah, I've done roofing as part of general contracting, and fuck that, dude. That is easily running away the hardest part of that kind of stuff.
It's brutal. And the guys I knew that did it, the guy that got me on, he actually still does it, which is his skin. I see him on he shows up sometimes on Facebook.
Yeah.
And his skin is like fucking leather.
Yeah. Dude.
He drinks like a 30-pack of natural light a day.
Yeah.
Which is like, why don't you just drink the heavier beer and drink 6 of them, dude? Why do you have to drink 30 of these things?
Man, I think, you know what? When I was doing that kind of stuff, did you ever dip?
Yes, I did.
When you dipped, like a lot of that, I think, is just to kind of keep your mouth wet. Like kind of have, have something to do while you're like just out there, and I don't know. Maybe it's got something to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, I smoked when I was roofing, and the fucking shit thing about it was you weren't allowed to smoke while you were working because I was at like a company, and I
Okay.
was like, "Oh, this is fucking bullshit, man." Everybody smoked on that roof. Every single one of us smoked, but we had to wait to take a break to have a cigarette, and I used to get so fucking mad about it. Like, how is that fair? You know, I'm up here in November. Let me smoke a cigarette.
Dude, if you're doing in Eastern Kentucky, it's just kind of part of it.
Yeah. And then but I ended up like getting out of that and going right to a call center for a year and a half, which is like, that is another thing for people like us. It's like, boy, my dream for a whole period of my life was to make $11 an hour at least
Yeah.
and sit at a desk somewhere.
Yes. Yes.
Like, I didn't care what I was doing, right? Like, I didn't even, like, I applied for so many jobs for like telemarketing, even though I know now it would have been hell. And it just was because I'm going to be at a desk. How hard can it be?
What's the craziest thing anybody called and said to you? I'm sure you got all that stuff. Yeah.
At the tech support, I actually, the only call I'll ever remember is a guy that was trying to get special favors from me while I was doing tech support. Like, he wanted me to like give him a credit or something, but like tech support can't do that.
Yeah.
It's like, we don't have access to the money or anything like that.
Right.
And he was trying to get me to do him favors because he said he was kin to John Michael Montgomery.
Hey, that gets you through a lot of doors around here. Dude, that is gold.
It was so weird, man, because it was like, this was years after, like, I Swear and the Auction song, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Dude,
so
when I was in college, we went to this bar all the time called George Moulton's Real American Honky Tonk. And George Moulton is just like this dude that's just like, he should have been like the biggest shit in country music ever, but he just, for whatever reason, whether he couldn't keep his head on straight or his unrepentant alcoholism or whatever it was, he just never made it. But he wrote like a lot of like big country songs. And his claim to fame, the feather in the cap for him, was he wrote Fly On Sweet Angel by John Michael Montgomery. So if you go cue that one up, shout out George Moulton, wherever you're at, buddy.
I mean, John Michael Montgomery was like he could have been Garth Brooks, but he just ended up being just like nobody remembers him. Nobody that's listening to this knows who we're talking about.
Yeah, I know.
He had like 3 hits, right? Like in the mid to late 90s, he had like 3 hits, and that guy was just like, he was like, "Are you sure you can't get me a free month?" And might I remind you that I am kin to John Michael Montgomery. And
dude, and it had to be true. Like, why would you just pull that? Like,
yeah,
kind of a big country star, but not a huge country star. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes, it's true. I mean, there's one of my favorite cons of all time. Like, one of my favorite like con things is when somebody kind of looks like a guy and just goes around and says that he's him.
Yeah.
Does that make, like, there used to be a guy that would go to bars and say he was Kid Rock because he kind of looked like him.
Yeah.
And try to get free drinks. And that is a top level great con.
It really is. And people like, I've not really had the occasion to be around a lot of famous people. Like, when we did the Nick Offerman interview, I think that was probably like, the most famous person I'd ever been around. But like, it's not just enough to look like them. I feel like you really have to like carry yourself like that too. You know what I mean? Otherwise the con's up.
Yeah. I mean, there was this guy, and I always thought this guy was a fucking genius. That before the band Stone Sour started, which for, if you don't know, the lead singer of Stone Sour is Corey Taylor.
Yeah.
The lead singer of Slipknot.
Right.
before Stone Sour started, there was a guy down in Myrtle Beach. He like lived down in Myrtle Beach, and he was getting free drinks at all the bars and getting like VIP treatment, telling people that he was Corey Taylor from Flip Top.
Yes. Look, like here's the thing though. Like I don't know that I could pick Corey Taylor out of a lineup. Like, even though, like, I've like seen his books and like, know who he is. Like, if a guy that was like 80% of the way there told me it's Corey Taylor and really sold it, I could be like, yeah, okay, you're Corey Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this story, and it'll blow your fucking mind. Probably blow the listeners' mind too. I don't think I've ever told this on any of the shows. So my sister dated this guy that was like kind of a nerdy. My older sister dated this guy that was kind of a nerdy dude. He like looked like a total fucking geek, but he had a Neo Geo game system that he would bring to my house and leave it there for a few days and let us play. And it was just like the coolest thing in the world because it's a $600 game system in like 1994 or something like that. And one of the ways that he impressed my sister to like be her boyfriend was that he told her he was the voice of Buster Bunny from Tiny Toon Adventures on TV. And the fucking coolest part about this thing was that when we asked him to do the voice, he said he wasn't allowed to do it. It's in his contract and he could lose his job if he did it. So he never did it for us.
Dude, what level of con do you have to be operating on to come up with something that elaborate?
I know, and it was just to get a girlfriend. It seemed like it wasn't even a money thing.
But also, if you're going to pick something that niche, I feel like you should go ahead and learn the voice.
Yes.
Sell it. You know what I mean?
That's what I was saying. I was like, but this motherfucker should have learned the voice or done the voice at the very. If you get, it's just like you said about Corey Taylor, Tom. If you get 80% to the voice, then everybody's just going to believe that they use the microphone tricks anyway.
Yeah, totally. That's funny, man.
I know. It's one of the craziest stories because like I immediately, as soon as I went and told my friends, because I'm probably 15 years old when this is going on, and as soon as I went and told my friends, they were like, "This motherfucker is lying."
100%.
Yeah. Your friend. I mean, like.
But at the same time, I'm like, okay, is this like one of those like reverse things where like you're picking something that you seemingly couldn't be lying about because it's so niche, but like that actually means you are lying about it? You know what I mean? Like the ninth degree dimensional chess stuff.
Yeah,
just for like lying to get a girlfriend.
Yeah, and you wouldn't say you're George Clooney. That would be like an enormous mistake. You have to pick somebody else. You have to pick a guy from a TV show that the person doesn't watch would be the move.
Oh yeah. It can't be somebody obvious. My cousin Peyton looks dead on like Ed Norton. Like we were at the beach one year, and these guys, these Marine guys, are up there running, and one of them comes up to Peyton. He leans over his ear and whispers, "The first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club." And Peyton's just like, "Man, you're the third person today."
Oh, that's incredible.
But when we got off the line, I'll send you a picture, dude. He's fucking dead on Ed Norton. Like, you can't tell them apart almost.
You should get free drinks with. Does he ever like take advantage of it, or is he just like, I'm not a con man?
No, he's kind of a Puritan about it.
Oh man, I would go. I mean, like, I would just go crazy with. I mean, that's the difference. I get like he probably has like also a real job. Like
Yeah.
Like I'm a guy that doesn't even have a real job. I just like. So I am like, I don't know if I couldn't lie to people like I care about, and I would feel kind of bad lying to somebody to get a girlfriend. But like money for me, like people that do that to get money. I feel like that's a job. I feel like that's like an entertainment job, basically.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like last year, my sister-in-law posted. I mean, like I don't even think I don't even think they're married. Well, somebody that's like in. It's not my sister-in-law. It's somebody that's like related in a way to me. They're at Christmas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not married, but they're. And she posted a picture from the Ohio State Fair with there was a picture of Jack Nicholson and Robert De Niro sitting together, and they were like dressed like their characters in movies. And she posted a picture of them at the fair, a picture of her with them at the fair, and the people in the comments believed that she had met them. It's so weird. We've been talking. I was talking to people in New York, and you'll definitely get this. Is like it's so weird doing what we do because there are a lot of people that like listen to us or what it's I was talking about how like people knowing who we are, right? Like all over the place is very weird to us compared to like if you grew up in New York or LA or something like that, where you actually saw famous people, you were around them, and you might even know somebody that's an actor. But like I never met another person in entertainment until I was firmly working in entertainment.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, speaking of which, I got to ask you how Patton Oswalt is in IRL.
He was really nice to us and didn't have to be. You know, like a guy like that could never do a podcast again. And also a guy like that has heard me and Brett actually talk badly about him on the show. Didn't have to do our show. So I respect the hell out of him.
Did he call you? Did he call you on it?
He did. He said he listened to our show, and this would have had to have been in 2015 or something.
So a long time ago.
Yeah, when like Daniel Tosh told the rape joke, and then everybody on Twitter was like mad about it, but then all the comedians were like, "We got to push back. This is a First Amendment thing." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Patton posted something saying like, you got to be able to do this shit. So me and Brett did our show that week, and we talked about comedy the way that we feel about comedy, which I love to get into. It's like one of my favorite things to talk about. And we were mean. You know what we were just like kind of making fun of him, but also saying like, you know, this guy is old, basically. And he said he heard that show and then realized that he was wrong. And like he needed to change like the way he looks at things, because the world is not the same anymore as it was in like, you know, when he first started. He said like the ironic racism stuff, the conceit for that was always, you know, I'm not racist, right? But now, even if you're not racist, if you do something racist, and racists will just like it. They don't fucking care. You know?
Right. Yeah. It doesn't matter your intent behind it. You're just feeding them. Yeah.
Yeah. So like he said, you know, I realized that like we live in a time where like if I say something racist, I'm inspiring racists. It doesn't like the irony might never show through. And like I just really respected that like he contacted Will Menaker from Chapo in like December and said, Can you get me on Street Fight?
Shit. So, dude, that is so wild. That it just, yeah. He sought you out.
Yeah, we didn't ask him. I'm afraid to ask people to do the podcast.
No, totally,
you know?
Man. Yeah.
Like I'll ask you because we've done one and we talk semi-regularly in DMs, and you know, this is going to be out before people know anything, but there's other stuff happening too.
Yeah, right.
that we don't want to announce. You know what I mean?
Right,
but like I like asking, that's one thing, or like asking Will and Felix to do the show. They're like personal friends of mine that I talk to all the time, or Matt Chrisman, or like I have John Cullen and Patty Moe and a few other people coming up, Jamie Peck.
Yeah.
And like I can ask them, but like I had Nick Weiger on the show from Doughboys like last year, and I had a total panic attack before and after I sent him the DM asking him to do the show.
Dude, I'm the same way. I've been trying to build up the courage to ask Matt Chrisman to come on our show, and I've just not been able to do it so far.
Oh, he will. I will do it for you. He would love to do your show. He loves doing shows, dude. He will do it. He's like the nicest guy. But you should absolutely have him on. He lived in Cincinnati for a while, and I know that Kentucky people and Cincinnati people have a lot in common.
Yeah, he was big into, I think, the Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati DSA there for a little bit. I remember when I first started listening to those guys. But yeah,
it's super cool. He's very nice.
He's just so, and it's just like one podcast episode that I always go back to is the one he did with Jake Flores, the Pod Damn crew.
I don't think I heard it, but is it like? I don't know why I cut you off there. You were about to explain it.
Oh no! It was just like gives the perfect primer on leftism in general, because something I always think about like is if I want to know something about something, okay, it's like where do I start? Like that's the hardest thing of anything. Like where do you start? And I thought it was just so perfect. But anyway, if Matt ever listens to this, we'd love to have you.
That's fucking great, man. That is I always listen. He is a guy that I've done like a few things. I mean, we did an American for Prosperity convention together.
Yeah.
And saw John Taffer speak live.
Oh my God, dude.
We went to the Republican National Convention in Cleveland together two of the days that it was going on. So me and Matt he's like crashed at my house a few times, and he's done live shows and shit with us. So me and Matt have like a pretty good relationship, and I think that he is like a guy that could be a great stand-up comedian, just on his own. And I think he could be a guy that would like a Sam Kinison type of thing. Like
I could see
he has this like, but smarter, because he's like a totally smart guy.
Brilliant, just so fucking brilliant. Yeah.
Then I stand on stage. When I stand on stage with that guy, I always know that he's gonna say something funny. I'm never like he's so funny. And like I always say I wish he would do stand up. Like I wish he should just
go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, he could film an hour and people would be blown away by the way that he talks about shit.
Yeah.
So I'm real glad. Like that's a guy that like I've known since 2010 or something like that, or 11. And I'm glad he hit, because I just think he's so fucking funny, man.
Yeah, man, he's great. And you know, that whole crew, I mean, Felix, man, like he put out a Halloween episode with us a few years ago, and then I've got him on the hook for something else, so he's been real sweet to us. But yeah, that's the thing Patton talked about though that was really cool was we were talking about how like the comedy scene, like I know stories of like the alternative comedy scene and just stand up in general. And this podcast, this whatever this scene is, whatever all these like all of us are, like we all get along and we all love each other, and we'll do. I mean, like even people I don't know, I will do anything to like help Jake Flores or you guys. You know, I want to use whatever I want to use whatever like social capital I have or whatever I get out of this. I want to use that to lift. Like I want to get people up here. If somebody and like I'm not saying I'm up high, but I want people to be peers. I want my peers to succeed too. Yeah. Where with stand up,
it always felt like everybody was rooting for other guys to lose, you know?
So let me ask you a question, just because and you can cut this out if you want to, but we've got some shit in the works. I'm curious how, because we've been working on our live act and want to kind of make it a little more substantial than even what y'all saw when you were down here. Like, what is your advice? Because you kind of have a little bit of a stand-up background. You and Brett do.
I mean, my advice for if you're like a podcast that's trying to do something live.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Like, how does that translate to, like, how could you translate that into a live show without that sort of like background? Like, you guys are fucking hilarious live. Like, I've seen the clips and stuff. Like, and I'm curious how somebody like me and Terrence or whoever could, sort of do that without that background. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we did stand up for 6 months though. Like a lot of times, like I think that period was like it was only 6 months. We didn't become great comedians.
Right. I mean, but you probably, sort of got it takes, there's a learning curve to just being on stage and like timing and stuff. I mean, I'm sure it's helpful with that stuff.
Well, yeah, and it was before us. I mean, before all the other podcasts like came around, right? Like before Chapo, when we were doing this back in 2011.
Just the Wild West.
Yeah, well, and it was just us pretty much. That was like the thing when Chapo hit, and then you guys started to do well, and when the Sam started to do well, when everybody started to do well, I was so happy because we'd been like this thing that was just this one thing, and now I feel like we're part of a scene, which I think is great. Like that, it's good for everybody.
Well, man, I love that you said that, and that's something that's sort of stuck with me since we talked when y'all were down here in Whitesburg, is that just this idea of cultivating a scene out of all this, whatever it is it feels good.
Yeah, and so like when I think about what helped me and Brett on stage, and the most important thing you're shooting for, and I'm sure you know this, I'm not telling you anything new, but you want to be Tom from the Trillbillies when you're on stage. You don't want to be like Tom that is sitting at his house watching TV. You know what I mean? Or like Tom.
I don't want to be that guy any day.
Or Tom that's giving a speech at a fucking dinner or something like that. You want to be, and like, you have to understand that what they want in the audience is they want Tom from the Trillbillies. They want Murder Brian. They don't want Brian Quinby that like sits at home on his ass and watches Bosch for 3 days. So it like took me a little while to figure out how to make Brian, Murder Brian, and Brett Payne, Pain. It took us a while to figure out how to make them a live thing, but really it's because we overthought a lot of it. We know now that we've done it a million times now, and the stage show is like, I'm proud of what we do on stage now.
Yeah.
But I remember those first few shows where it was just like we're standing there talking as fast as we can and telling like canned jokes, and I'm very happy now. We used to rehearse the shows before the show too.
Yeah,
we would like hit, but now and then take notes and have bullet points on stage. But now we just know what we're going to talk about before we go up there, and we have faith. I have faith that Brett and whoever else, if it's just me and Brett, I have 100% faith that he will say something funny if I ask him a question or throw to him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's something you need. And then he has 100% faith in me to push the show along and to get us where we need to go, like in the talking. And like when I'm on stage with the Chapo guys, I have 100% faith that I can say, Will, what do you think about this? And Will say something funny. And I think the most important thing you have to have is you have to remember that the people that are coming to that show want to see Tom from the Trillbillies, and they want to see Terrence from the Trillbillies, and like the whole goal is not to try to give them something else.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. And
your intuition as a person, if you're like me or you're like Brett, like you think we thought we had to give them something else on stage, but that is not what they're paying money for. They're paying money for a live version of who you are on that podcast,
Yeah. Right.
But I do recommend, whenever somebody asks me, like, I do recommend writing, and I do recommend like giving serious thought to what you're going to do before you go out there. And you just have to, like, if we are going on tour next week and we know what we're talking about and we know a lot of the premises and we know what's funny about everything, and we're like ready to go, instead of going out there and just being like, we're going to riff on the day's news and just try to do the podcast up here. Because that's another thing that I don't like the idea. And, like I said, we're doing this thing later. You can have one if you want. I'm not like a fucking tyrant. But I don't like when people bring a table and chairs and laptops out on stage to do their live show.
Yeah, I've thought about that, and I'm like, I was talking to Lee Baines about this, and I was like, I'm just, like, this has been several months ago before we really started thinking about what we would do, and I was just like, I'm not sure and there's no diss to anybody that does this, I'm just not sure I would turn out for a live podcast taping, if that makes sense.
Me neither. Yeah. No, I'll show up to a show.
Yeah.
Like any day. And me and Brett put on we call it Street Fight Live. It's not a podcast taping. It is a live approximation. It's what if the characters on the radio were doing a live show? If that helps you at all, I don't know if it does, but it is like, what if the characters on the radio had to put on some sort of a variety show?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a rough approximation of what we are shooting for. If the characters on the radio were asked to give a speech, how would they act? And then we kind of think from that place. If you sit down at a desk with your laptop and you do all your bits and you don't I guess write jokes and you don't include the audience on stuff, how is that ever going to be successful?
Yeah, no, totally, man. And and the other thing too is well, never mind. I'll stick that because I don't know. We don't want to announce that what we're doing.
Yeah, well, it has been hinted at a lot.
Okay.
So there are people that can read between the lines. I will say this: the other show that's with us is excellent live, and the other thing that I will say is that a half hour to start out. I wish that we would have had that. Me and Brett have had to do an hour every time we go on stage.
Man, that is terrifying. That is terrifying. I was thinking about that. I was like, the way that you've sort of conceptualized this and broke it up, and especially for like the finale part, like you're such an easy guy to talk to and such an easy guy to play off. Like, like even, right now, like I'm fairly like shy, sort of introverted guy in some ways. And like, I just like, you're just an easy guy to warm up with. So it's good to have like guys like you and Brent and those guys out there too. So it's,
I think here's the thing. I don't do things with people that I don't think have the skill to be good. I would never propose working with a person that I didn't think was funny or good and good. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
totally.
The people I choose to work with on stage and the people we the people, we will have special guests at like a lot of their shows that are going to have like really special guests and like that kind of stuff is like, I don't just do that with anybody, because I don't even like, me and Brett don't even work with like stand-ups. You know what I mean? We don't have openers.
Yeah.
Now.
That is terrifying to me.
Well, believe me, it's better to just, we feel as though like we want to live or die on what we do, and not, if we fucking eat shit on stage, then that's our fault. It's not some dipshit came in and killed the crowd before we got to go on stage.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. Have you all eaten shit before?
Not doing Street Fight, but there are shows we're not super proud of. We haven't bombed ever. Honestly, Atlanta was a really rough audience. that show sticks out in my mind as sort of not one that I'm ultra proud of. The people at the show seemed to like it and told me that they liked it, but it was really hard. It was 50 minutes, I think, because none of the audience had questions or wanted to talk to us at all, and we kind of burned through all of our material. And I mean, but again, eating shit out there. First of all, I'm going on stage and performing to people that paid money to come and see Street Fight Radio.
So that's like a lot of pressure off the top. Yeah.
It's easy. Like, I know how to do Street Fight Radio. That's very fucking easy. But secondly, like, bombing is not the worst thing in the world. It isn't going to kill you. Do you have a fear of bombing at all? Is that something that worries you?
Well, it's funny. I was talking to my buddy Billy Wayne. Have you ever seen Billy Wayne Davis, his stand-up?
I don't think I have. I don't watch a ton of stand-up though. For
real.
Well,
yeah. Oh yeah. No, totally. You're probably better for that. Billy's really good. He's like did voices on the Squidbillies and shit before, and he's been really sweet to us. And he was like, dude, it's just like, you might bomb, but it's just like part of the fun is just, seeing how bad you can eat shit up there sometimes. So
yeah, and it also is like not life or death up there.
Yeah.
And I'll say this about the situation for what we're doing later this year. You don't have to worry about carrying it on your shoulders. And like, I actually do want to create a place. I think that if you're using what we do as like a way to learn how to do it, that's the best fucking place to do that. Like,
totally.
It's not a ton of pressure. They are going to get something, they're going to get something they like. So if that happens, that's not something that I would worry about. I really think that, like, after the first time, if you've already been on stage before and had to be funny, it only gets easier after the first time.
Yeah.
That was something for me. I wrote about this recently in a zine. The first time I got on a stage and the light was like shining in my face.
Yeah.
I was dizzy and I couldn't like make anything out. And I felt like I was in
You're gonna pass out.
I think it was the worst panic I've ever felt in my entire life.
Yeah.
But I don't think that I don't think that was warranted. I think stand-up audiences are good. Essentially, they want to see something funny, and they will give you a lot of space to make that. People that don't do stand-up or people that don't do live performance think the opposite. They think you walk into a cold room and you have to take it from cold all the way to like busting a gut or like moshing or whatever like that. But I mean, you've been to a concert.
Yeah.
People shit their pants for like the 10 minutes before the band is on stage.
That's true. Very true. Very true.
I mean, I love what you guys do. I'm super excited to see how it turns out. And like, I think I mean, like the way you guys could do something, especially in the South, that nobody's ever done is the way that I feel. I feel like you have something where you really could uh change people's minds, and also just like you guys are good entertainers already, and you have to think about the fact that like the things we're doing, the things me and Brett are doing, the things the Chapo guys are doing, the things you guys are doing, the things the Sams are doing, and Jake Flores and even Nick, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Nick Hayes, right? Nobody's ever made stuff for the people that we're making stuff for.
right,
You know?
right. You just kind of learn just by doing it.
Yeah. And I think like I think it's so exciting. Like there's never been anything like you guys, you know, like you and Terrence and Tanya. There's never been anything like the Trillbillies. And all it needs to do to grow even bigger is get in front of fucking more people. You know?
I appreciate that. I do. It's yeah. We just it's just we never thought we'd even be in this position, and it's not like we're in any great position or anything like that, but yeah, it's just people been really good to us.
I'll tell you what's
It blows
funny.
me away.
I mean, I this is what I said to a lot of people. I mean, you know, nobody that lives in a place like you live or a place like I live ever thinks that there's ever even a possibility that they could even make $100 a week doing something like this.
Oh no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And what's funny? I spent a lot of my 20s, and I think a lot of people did this, like reading the books and the personal finance blogs and all the shit, trying to figure out how like I could make more money because I was always poor my whole life. I've never had much. And what's funny is I had to become a communist to start making money. It's the damnedest thing.
Well,
But
you had to start being true to like who you are.
yeah,
I mean, I never was in great shape. I do make more now than I've ever made, which I'm very proud of.
right.
But like, it's still not a lot. Trust me, I never
Oh
made a
yeah,
lot. I was always fucking broke.
right. Same, same.
But all that time I spent miserable and sad and feeling mean and like helpless and just all of that stuff. I wish I would have just tried anything else. You know, it's so hard in your 20s to realize that you're not locked into the whatever you get into for the rest of your life.
Yeah, yeah. No, it
I mean,
is. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, I was going to ask what did you like? What were your 20s like?
Man, you know what? I was talking with Terrence a little bit about this on the show. It's like I was always, trying to run some sort of scheme. Like I was like, I was telling the story about the Kentucky Derby this past weekend, and like I got fucked out of this huge ticket because I don't know if you how close you followed this, but they disqualified like the horse that won, and that's the horse that I had bet on and all this shit. And I was starting to think about like my trajectory to that point, and it's just like I was just like the dodgiest little son of a bitch that ever like existed. That's right. You know what I mean? Like I was betting like carriage races at off-track betting sites when I was like barely old enough to see over the counter. Like I was going to card houses when I was 13, like playing for like 2 days straight. Telling my mom I'm at one of my buddies' house or some shit. And I don't know. It's just that's kind of what I've always just tried to figure out what I could do to improve my station. And I think that. That a lot of times that's the kind of shit I was just into. You talk a lot about like growing up in the pool halls and stuff like that. That's just so like, I knew that we were kindred, in a lot of ways, but with that shit. So
You're just, I mean, like for me, it was just like, how are people, first of all, in your 20s, I feel, you're trying to figure out like how people are adults. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like how your dad, my dad, I'll just say my dad, he and other kids' dads carried so much fucking cachet and felt like such like something different than what I ended up being when I was in my 20s and even my 30s. Like I don't feel like I carry any power or authority, or like I don't feel like people automatically respect me the way that you think that they're going to when you're a kid, you know?
right, yeah. That's interesting, dude. That is true. Like, yeah, like you just think that like these like dads or whatever, or moms or whatever, they're just like these revered figures that have all this shit out. And a weird experience is when you get old enough to know that like they didn't really have shit figured out like you thought they did.
Yeah, they just they didn't know how to they like they were fucking bullshitting just like me and you.
Yeah,
That's the fucking thing.
yeah, yeah. That's true, man. That's the fake it till you make it thing is absolutely true in parenting. I think.
I
I don't
mean,
have
that's
anything to
how I
compare it
was.
to. So,
Well, my daughter's 14 and now 14, 15, 16, 17, actually anything past like 11,
uh-huh.
I have somewhat memories of. Like I
Yeah.
can remember what it was like at those ages. And watching my daughter grow up and be those ages
Uh-huh.
has been, I mean, really fucking weird. But I'm very honest with her that like I don't know the secrets to the world, kid.
I leave for stretches at a time and do comedy on a stage.
Well, I don't want her to have that same mystique around adults though either. Like
Yeah.
I want her to feel confident in her own skin when she's 20,
Yeah.
22, 23. And not in a way that I was not.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. You know what's weird? You said you were talking about the, 14, 15, 16, 17 thing. I don't know how you feel, but this is so weird to think about, but like I don't feel that far removed from that, even at 33. And I don't know if that's completely pathetic or
I don't think so. I mean, I think I was, it's funny that you're bringing this up because I mean, I don't feel far away from any version of me.
yeah.
I don't feel far away from 2000, like year 2000, Brian.
Yeah.
But I am I'm way different. Like
Yeah.
I steered out of a bunch of shit.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But I don't I think about this. If 26-year-old me met 40-year-old me, I fucking would have. I don't know what I would. I probably would have beat myself up.
Oh dude. Yeah. No, not a question about it.
Because you like, do you have like I guess the question for you. I guess the question is, are you proud of that stuff? You know what I mean? Like, are you proud of 14, 15, 16, 17? Are you proud of the way that you were at those times?
Man, you know what? You know what's interesting is like I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, I'm sure, but like, I deal with a lot of like anxiety and like, mental health stuff. And what's funny is I can look back and I see the seeds of that stuff that I didn't know what it was at that time. Like, you just think it's just kind of this angsty stuff that just comes along with that, but that you could tell like sort of grew into something that's like affects you even as an adult. And I wonder all the time what I could have done then to like sort of, stave that off, if that were even possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's something I think about a lot around that age, because you just spend a lot of time at that age, just kind of like, you know, I feel, well, for me anyway, just like, kind of pissed off for no good reason.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was that until I would say I was that until I was 26.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why I have that cut off. Well, my daughter was born when I was 26.
Yeah.
But like I was so pissed all the fucking time at the world. I felt, it's one of those, I don't, I wish somebody would have fucking yelled at me. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
wish and this is part of the mission statement of, at least for me, right? Like whatever I do on Street Fight, whatever I do on stage, whatever I do on Twitter or anything like that, is that like, if somebody would have come to me when I was 25 years old and told me that other adults didn't know what was going on either, and like we're just fucking kind of trying to figure it out and bullshit it, it might have taken away a lot of the shit that made me quit the cable job, a lot of the anxiety behind the cable job. I think if somebody had explained the world better to me, I might not even be doing this,
Right.
because I would have felt more comfortable. And maybe doing this now is really great, but I did spend like 3 years, with nothing, no money at all, broke, struggling, not knowing how I was going to, pay everything, and really miserable. And it just ended like this year. And I wonder if I would have just been happier. I mean, I always tell my wife, like, I would probably be making pretty good money if I had stayed at the cable company.
Well, we're all grateful that you didn't. I'll say that.
But I think what you're saying though is it would have been nice to have somebody explain more to you so that you didn't act crazy because you thought you were just a child, because that's really, in the end, like that part of your 20s was you being a teen. You were you didn't want the responsibility. I mean, you said you worked a bunch of shitty jobs, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But you were still like kind of making money on the side, doing other things, gambling and shit.
Man, dude, I was the campus bookie. Dude, I did a lot of shit.
Your dream was a lot like mine. And like there's this thing about capitalism that says that we all need to conform to our slot in the economy or in the workforce. And I don't know, I can't say for sure that you're this person, but I just washed out of it. I couldn't hack it. I couldn't handle it. And that's why I'm not there anymore.
Same. And sometimes I worry about like having to go back to that with basically no skills, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I feel safe now in a way. Like I feel like I've built enough that like I can figure something out to make money. And it's also like when you don't work a real job for a very long time, you just know that you can survive. It's like it's quitting the real jobs that's the hard part, the day job sort of thing. And I feel like I couldn't do it. I like my body rejected it 100%. I was throwing up in the bushes every morning before I left. I was shaking and sweating and fucking crying. And I had like an opioid addiction that was like crazy. And like I was having all these panic attacks, and I didn't have to fucking go through that. You know what I mean? Like it would have just taken somebody really talking to me like a person. And as you said, fake it till you make it. It would have just taken another person to be not faking it.
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
that's what I want to be. I want to be the person that's not faking it. I want to, like, our listeners are a lot younger than me. I'm fucking 40 years old. I want to be a guy that tells them that they're okay, that
Right.
there's nothing wrong with them. The system is fucked up.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. No, exactly, dude.
Yeah. I mean, working a real job sucks, you know, and like I have uh I have a great respect for a guy that's like, I have a great respect for anybody that works at the same place for like 20 years and retires from there, or for 30 or 40 years and retires from there and lives a great life and made something of themselves within that system. I'm not saying that doing that is bad or boring or anything like that. I'm saying that I didn't have it in me to do it. Like I wasn't able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. And it's you know, I was talking to Terrence the other day, and I take my dog to the tennis courts, the public tennis courts down here to let her play every morning. And the tennis courts are right beside our like swimming pool, and the guys that work for the city, like getting it ready and like winterizing it and all this stuff and like repairing all the cracks and whatever needs to be done. Like I did that for like so long with those guys, and some of those guys are still there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And two things happen. One, you miss the camaraderie that comes with that shit. Like that is like the number one thing of like the manual labor type stuff that I used to do, like that I do miss a ton. That just can't be duplicated anywhere else. And you know what I'm talking about. Anybody that's ever worked that kind of stuff knows what I'm talking about. And then on the other hand, this like sort of like, you know, petty bouge like life that I like have now, like this the guilt that sort of comes with that, and like how to navigate that. I don't know if that's anything you've ever wrestled with, but
Well,
like
I do have a lot of trouble with not feeling what's the word, like it's kind of, I don't feel like I bring anything to the table, you know, in my house, in any kind of situation. It, I think like it doesn't feel like I work. You know, it doesn't feel like I do anything. Even though I work all the fucking time. I'm constantly working on this fucking show. Like constantly. I'm only ever doing or getting ready to do something for this fucking show.
right.
But like I see it as I see the things that got me here as a sort of shortcoming that I wasn't I wasn't able to make it in the working world. And I think that's why I whenever somebody asks me what I do, so like a lot of times I set up doctor's appointments for like 1 or 2 p.m. and they're like, "Can you do the morning?" And I'm like, "Nah, dude, I sleep until like fucking noon."
Yeah.
And they'll say like, "Oh, you work third shift?" And I'll be like, "Nah, I just don't have a real job."
That's a tough one to explain, I'm sure, to people too.
I don't want to explain Street Fight to people. Like that's why I tell them I don't have a real job. I just want them to think I'm unemployed.
just to lay about.
I mean, how do you feel explaining your show to people?
Man, it is like I tell them basically that it's like a radio show. You know what I mean? And we talk
Yeah.
about politics, in particular, like left politics. And then, you know, to a lot of people, I might as well be telling them I'm a fucking astronaut. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, when I tell people when I do get into the street, like what Street Fight is and shit, I tell them, you know, we leftist and funny. It's comedy and it's like has a left perspective, and then they think I'm talking about like Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton or whatever
yeah.
a liberal is, you know.
Right.
So,
Yeah. That's the other tricky one to explain too. Is like when your friends come to you that like, and you know, like I guess everybody was there at one point, or you know, probably a lot of people that are leftists now were probably liberals at one time, and trying to like explain, you know, the differences to people that like, you know, that, you know, either one or two things. Either one, just don't have an articulation of a politics that's further left than, like, you know, whatever the Democrats are offering at the time, or B, that already think they're as like far left as you can be, you know, and like, you know, just like,
yeah.
you know, as like a proud Obama supporter or whatever, you know.
I'm with you, man. That is another tough one. I mean, my father-in-law knows what I do for a living, and he also he knows what I do for a living, and he's a Trump guy.
Yeah.
So, like, whenever I'm around him, he wants to fight. Like,
he wants to take you to the marketplace of ideas and go a few rounds with you.
That is exactly it. Every time I see my father-in-law, he takes me to the marketplace of ideas, Tom. That's the best way to describe that.
It's not my father-in-law, but I understand that completely.
Yeah. I mean, you fighting with conservatives, though, to be completely honest, that one feels good. Yeah. I like doing it. I fucking like just they start yelling at you about Obama, and you're like, whoever said I liked Obama, you know?
Yeah. That's the one that always kind of trips them out too, because they think that's their big mic dropper right there.
Yeah. You're just like,
now he's a war criminal, and they're like, well, wait, that's not, you can't pull that one out.
I don't like that. I don't like it that you said that. It's like when you know, yeah, and you've probably had this experience too. It's when you argue with a boomer about classic rock, and you tell them you don't like a band. It freaks them out.
Oh yeah. No, totally. Yeah, the same thing.
I don't like the Beatles. Whoa, what?
Well, I really don't like the Beatles.
I'm not a fan either. I like telling people. I mean, you know how. I mean, if anybody follows me on Twitter knows that, like, I just tell people I like Korn now. That's just all I say. I'm just like, I'm like a really big Korn fan. I listen to mostly country music and rap music, basically. Right. But I tell people that because I don't know. I do listen to Korn sometimes, but you know, I'm big into like I like honky tonk country music a lot. Yeah. You know, like I really like Sturgill's album Meta Modern Sounds and Country Music. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that's a fucking masterpiece. Yeah, that thing. Yeah. But well, Tom, I want to thank you for doing the show with me.
Yeah, man. No, this is so fun and good for me too, and I appreciate it, man.
Hell yeah. I don't know when this will be out, but expect some big news from Street Fighting the Trillbillies pretty soon. And thanks again, Tom. Tell them where to find you.
So we're at the Trillbillies on Twitter, and my personal is at Tom Sexton. So yeah,
Tom's great. Follow him. I love their show. I love them as people. And have a good evening, listener.
Yeah. See y'all.